and welcome to the PCA Podcast. It's a show where three friends get together, a pagan, a Christian, and an atheist, to talk about the news, politics, pop culture, and the things that are on the minds of Americans every week. I'm Josh the Atheist. I'm here with Randy,
the Pagan.
And I am very proud to introduce, finally he's here, Ron Huffman,
Hey,
the Christian.
I'm the Christian, and I don't know if I should say proud to be here, because isn't that Christian pride? But I am the Christian, yes.
Yeah, we started our first episode. I talked a little bit about what I believe in my atheism, and Randy, he talked a bit about his particular kind of paganism and spirituality. Could you take a moment to talk about what you believe?
Absolutely. All right. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I truly believe that, heart, mind, and soul. All right? But I'm not what you would call... there's going to be a lot of Christians who don't like me. Just going to say that up front, because they're so used to following religion. I'm not a religious Christian. I am a spiritual Christian, which means that I am more spiritual than, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, whatever, because I think that comes in just service, and that will all happen naturally. And that's what I think. That's what I believe. I love my atheist friend here, because he's my friend Josh. It doesn't matter to me that he's atheist. Shouldn't matter to any Christian. I just met Randy. The fact that he's pagan does not matter to me as far as my friendship towards him goes, because that's the whole point. People come from different backgrounds, and people believe what they believe from what they've come from. And that's what it's all about. And hopefully you get the gist of what we're all about. And I guarantee you, we're not going to agree on a lot of things, but that's good. But what we will agree on is to agree that we disagree.
Agreed.
You see? And that is mutual respect for one another and our faith and whatever we think and whatever we believe. Do I want these guys to be Christians? Heck yeah, I want them to be Christians. Why? Because I know what I feel to be the truth, and when we die, and I want them to have that, But does that mean I have to ignore them, stay away from them, not be friends with them, not love them, not care, not be a part of their life? Absolutely not. That's contradictory to Christ. And I've said what I said.
Go ahead, Josh. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and start with our first story, gentlemen. Powdered alcohol was just approved for sale, and it is called Palcohol. It's coming out for sale this summer. It's available in 5 varieties. The 3 you are looking at the top are add water to bag to make drinks like Powderitas and Cosmopolitans. The 2 on the lower bracket are hard alcohol. I think one is vodka and the other one is rum, and you add this one into a drink instead to get drunk.
I gotta say, Jesus is gonna disapprove already, because there's no wine. I'm just saying, there's no wine. Where's the wine?
It's close. It's turning water into vodka. We're getting closer to that. That's almost a miracle.
He went there. I can't believe he went there.
He went there. Almost a miracle.
Almost. I didn't try.
I'm sitting here going, okay, I shouldn't say this on air, but I'm going to. This may actually be something I'll be using at work.
What? Where do you work at, Randy?
Oh, we don't discuss. We don't discuss.
Well, okay. So, how would you use this in a work environment? Not your work environment, but a work environment.
To calm me down and calm my nerves. That's a good way to do it. And also, all I gotta do is add it in water. Well, take a small water bottle, pour it in, or pour it, and just do what I gotta do.
Why don't you just snort it? It's a powder form, dude.
That's like
just saying, it's powder form.
Yeah, everybody's thought of that. Now,
that's a good sex on the beach.
Thought about is using dipping sticks instead, and just get a dipping stick, and instead of using the candy, you put it straight into the alcohol, and you suck on it. That's what a lot of people have been saying. But I think that the main use for this product is going to be concerts, bars. Sneak one of these in your back pocket and save yourself a couple of bucks on it.
Well, how do you feel about this, Josh?
I think it's a great invention.
Really?
I think it's a great way to stick it to $7 beers.
Well, how much are they? You're saying it's a great way. Do you know the price of them?
At a stadium. Well,
I mean, $7 beers. Do you know the price of them?
I
What if
stand
this is
corrected.
$12 for one serving? I mean,
I stand
it's not a great
corrected.
way to stick to $7 beers if you're paying more.
He's got a point on that
you
one.
do have a point, but I would imagine that that is the target audience. I don't know this for sure, but I assume that they are targeting people who aren't able to bring liquid alcohol into places. And the problem with bringing liquid alcohol into places is because they charge a lot for the liquid alcohol. So this would have to be cheaper than that to be successful.
Well, the other thing is, for me, is, you know, like I said, certain people, you know, depending on the work environment, you know, the good thing is, you know, you can bring this anywhere. The downside is you can bring it anywhere. Like, I could be at work, you know, drinking it, and no one would be none the wiser, especially the vodka part. You know, because vodka and water look pretty much alike. The other thing is you're going to have people who are, you know, drinking it all over the place, or then doing the dip. I'm really liking the idea of the dipper stick. Just to try that out.
I hear you.
You know, just for fun. But at the same time, the whole point is, I kind of think it's a good thing, but I don't really drink. I mean, I might have a bottle of mead once in a while, but, you know, for me, I think just beer's expensive.
Well, you're the one that said you could take it to work and put it in a work environment. Well, no, you're the first one that spoke up, brother.
Yeah, and I'm saying I would do this. I don't, you know, if I could find
Just saying.
If I could get like this for cheaper, you know, like a little bag of this for like 99 cents, and then instead of buying a full can of beers, the other thing is I can sneak that into my work site. I can sneak it anywhere, and then just pour it into water, you know, and make sure you take the cover off of it and just leave it in a little bag.
Tell people it's Crystal Light.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
What about, okay, so you think
What about the
that
children?
people should take this into work and as a way of getting, you know, drinking and getting drunk on the job?
Do you
Wow.
approve of drinking on the
I'm
job?
just saying.
Randy?
I mean, if
Is
you
that
make
what you're suggesting?
that so readily available in a powder form that all they got to do is hit the men's restroom and like,
But
you
we're
know,
all
do
forgetting
a
about
few
the
shots
children.
and come back to work and they're all
It also
plastered.
depends on, okay, let me say it like this. Depends on where you work. If you're working in a position where you're a police officer or emergency service,
What if your doctor does it?
damn, I didn't think about that.
Does it matter where you work? I mean, because you're going to have to leave from work, and maybe you're still under the influence of this powdered stuff, and you got to leave. And what if you kill somebody on the way home?
What if we were under the influence?
I know
of
that's
gunpowder
hardcore, but
alcohol?
I have to ask the relevance at home. At home, I mean, I don't see the relevancy. Okay, Josh, I don't.
It's a travel pack. That's what it's for. Okay, okay, take it. Okay, we're going backpacking, and you don't want to carry a handle on your back. Okay, and you want to have a few drinks at the top of the mountain. Come on,
I know.
It's a
I know
novelty.
the weakness
It's
of
a
people.
novelty.
They're gonna
It's
use
not-
this anywhere they can.
Okay,
And
I'll say
come
this.
on,
Here's the
pack, go
Here's
camping.
the problem with it is it all goes down to moderation. If you know that you're going to be, if you drink one of these, depending on the amount of content of the alcohol, like for instance, if this is equivalent to one shot of like, you know, whiskey or something, this is how.
And you bring 6 of them with you to work.
Well, that's
You're pretty done.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
but that's why you know. That's why it's the moderation part. If you like, for instance, one of these can really make a person drunk instantly, depending on their tolerance level. So you don't bring more than one.
What if they like cinnamon challenge an entire like 4-pack of
Are
them?
you trying to tell me that that's what we're trying?
Yes,
Oh my
yes,
God.
Buy
Oh my
the
God,
entire
dude.
6-pack and
Guys.
we will down the packets on the show. If
I
you
got a
send them to our
sidestep.
PO box.
I got a sidestep. There is a church, and you can look it up on Google. You can
Okay.
Google this. I'm not lying. You can Google this. There's a church who's offering beer to fill the seats. Beer. What do you think about that
I
for a
might show up
Christian
on
church?
Sunday.
Exactly.
That's one way to get people in. That's one way to get
So,
people
alright.
into fill those seats.
Yeah, whatever. All the stuff this
Hey.
guy's saying is a bunch of
Hey.
loose stuff. But hey, give me another Budweiser.
As a church, I'd be scared to death to do this because what if people came to your church, heard your message, got in the car, drove home, got in a car accident, and killed a family because they got drunk at your church, hearing the Lord's message. Hallelujah! Praise the Lord! Right?
Does this church
No.
have an Alcoholics Anonymous
Right?
section?
I think they're trying to create customers.
Oh.
That's from the
I don't
Christian
think
right
they
here.
charge for Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys got anything more to say about this?
I just think stick with the regular alcohol. You know, the first recorded miracle in the Bible, as far as the Bible is concerned, is Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding. Means he wanted people to celebrate. As far in the Old Testament, it says God gave wine to make merry the hearts of men and oil to anoint his head. All right? That's scripture. That's scripture for you. All right? You Christians who just need scripture and are going right now, they're going, oh, I got scripture. All right? Yes, scripture is awesome. I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible. I love the Bible. And that's what the Bible says. But, like he said, everything in moderation. Jesus said, be sober-minded. So it doesn't mean, you know, get plastered off your butt, even though it happens, you know? It happens to each and every one of us.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, unless you're like super, super religious.
Or you're like me and have like one shot of tequila and have no recollection of what happened the rest of that night.
Well, there you go.
That's why I don't drink tequila anymore.
See, that's a man who's learned from life. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Let's move on. What do you got, Josh?
Excellent. We're going to be talking about something more serious. We're going to be talking about the college graduation rates and how they show the growing income gap. You can see this little graph.
Oh my gosh.
It's a little bit of, you can see, those numbers climbing up, but let's interpret those numbers real quick. The percentage of students from the lowest income families, those making $34,000 a year or less, earning a bachelor's degree, has inched up to just 3 points since 1970, from 6 to 9% by 2013, and that's just to be more clear about these statistics, we're talking about earned a degree by the age of 24. Meanwhile, college completion for students from the wealthiest families has risen dramatically, climbing from 44% to 77% in the same amount of time.
I'm afraid to say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. And here's the problem with it is, the way this sounds, is like the wealthiest families have risen dramatically. Well, here's the thing. Who's the one who's running this country? Who's the one who has all the money? Of course, they can afford to make sure that these, the wealthiest students, are graduating. I mean, me personally, I'm not a college graduate because the whole, I had to go to vocational schools. I have not found very few people, I have found very few people who graduate with a degree in anything that have actually gotten anywhere in the field that they've gotten that degree in. There was a guy that...
I agree with him.
And there was a thing on Yahoo News. I don't know if you can still find it, but you can search for it. It's a Harvard graduate. Now, Harvard, from what I'm told, is a law school. Well, he graduated. Every job he applied for, he was told that he was too overqualified. And then after that...
I've heard that.
And then, what is he doing now? Well, last time, when this story came out, flipping burgers at McDonald's. This guy...
Not overqualified for that, was he?
Well, that was and the company's excuses are, well, when they say you're overqualified, what they're trying to say is you're going to get bored here and want to leave and do something better. Well, now we're at a point where it's like all these people are losing their tax returns, this and that, because they can't afford to pay for the school loans because they can't get jobs. So when I hear that the wealthiest families have driven themselves from 44 to 77, that's not a surprise. What I want to hear is like the people who are low income that are doing that. 3 points since 1970.
Randy, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. Here's what I feel, and I may be labeled as a conspiracy theorist or whatever. I don't care. I'm just saying, if you actually knew the true income gap between the most wealthiest and the poorest, and you saw the middle class, you'd see that the middle class is almost non-existent. The poor outnumber the middle class, and the rich. I know you think that the poor are down here and the rich are here. Let me give you more of a realistic. The rich are up here, and on and on and on and on. Okay? Compared to the poor. The rich are trillionaires who keep becoming trillionaires over and over and over and over again. These are the people you don't really hear about. Do you hear about the Rothschilds? Do you hear about these people? No. They're alive, but you don't hear about them. Why is that? They're the richest. They're trillionaires. And these are the people who are pulling the strings. They're running the global markets. They're running the banks. You know, don't even get me going on this. Hey, you got the Federal Reserve, who's a private bank, who's running our government money, our treasury, and it should be a treasury based on gold. The value of gold in Fort Knox. Do you see what I'm saying? Not on when the Federal Reserve chooses to print up more money because we're running low. Because when you print up more money, when you're running low, what does that do? It decreases the value of the dollar. And yes, I do have an accounting degree. I'm one of those people who went to college, got an accounting degree, but I did not go to work in my profession. I actually went to work in media. I was a news anchor, reporter. I've done voiceovers. I went in a whole different area. You know why? Because I'm depressed with my area of expertise, because it's a sham, it's a ripoff, and the only people who are getting rich are the richer.
Well,
and that's the way I feel.
Yeah, I bring up the story. It's close to me because, you know, I don't have a college degree, and a lot of people, like, let's say in, like, you know, my father's age group era, you know, they look down on me and they say, well, I got a degree when I was your age, and I worked, and I went to school. Well, to those people I say, the Pell Grant covered 67% of college costs in 1975, but only 27% in 2012. When you went to college,
wow,
67% of your college education could have been covered if you were, you know, impoverished. And, you know, at the time, you could afford an apartment with a full-time job. In fact, at the time, people would go to school full-time, and then they'd use that money to pay for their college, and they'd work part-time to pay their bills. So the times, they are changing. You know, as you can see from the numbers we've looked at. Do you guys have anything more to say about this?
I want to say, go ahead, Randy. I've been talking a lot. Go ahead.
The thing is, I remember what you're talking about. They literally said that you can have a full-time job, go to school, and have a one-bedroom apartment to yourself. Now, like I said, right now, you know, where we live, and we're not going to say where we live exactly.
In California.
But we're in California, we'll at least say that much. The whole thing is,
we're in the armpit.
I was going to call it.
I call it the armpit.
I was more going to call it the butthole, but that's just.
Well, same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's hot and stinky.
Yeah, pretty much. So the whole thing
That's a good analogy.
The whole thing is for us is that, you know, when this all started to change, we're the only country that literally will hold people to the, you know, to paying these bills when they can't afford it. If you look around at other countries, like I think it's the UK, England, Ireland, all these other countries, if you don't pay off your, you know, your student loans by a certain time, or making an income that would be, you know, efficient to pay your student loans, the government takes it as a tax write-off. Here, I've had my friend, you know, he had $5,000 that he was supposed to get for his family and everything, and he lost his whole entire tax refund because of his student loan. I actually had mine, not this year, but last year, taken out because of a student loan that apparently fell through and the IRS took over and the Department of Education. Yet when I was filing for it last year, nobody told me anything about that. So, you know, they'll just garnish
Randy,
wages.
how much was your student loan to begin with?
My student loan.
Be honest, because I have a student loan. I'm gonna reveal something here. I'm disabled. I'm on disability, and I can have my student loan dissolved if I want to go through all the BS that it takes to do that. But I want to ask Randy.
Okay, the first one I had was, since I did not graduate, was over $1,000, and that one was the one still.
$1,000?
Yeah, let me finish. The second time I went to school, I went to a vocational college. For the same, you know, and I recently found this out, and I want to make sure I state this. I talked to a friend in my martial art, you know, a former friend from a martial arts school, and she told me that she's going to the same trade that I went into.
Mm-hmm.
I paid close to $10,000 to $14,000, you know, $14,000, but that's only because I borrowed an extra $400. But $10,000 for a small amount of time to go to school for this particular vocational job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she tells me she's now found a guy who could train her to do the same exact thing, certified and everything, you know, it's all kosher, for half the price, if not more than half the price. And I'm sitting there going, I went through all this. Now, I know other people who went to a similar vocational school, but I'm just going to say, I went to a massage therapy school, became a massage therapist.
Okay.
I know a guy who went into a different area. He was going to the Bay. He paid almost as much as I did, maybe a little bit more, but he also had more in-depth training, because I had what was known as crash courses in certain areas.
I got you.
You know, like for shiatsu, it was a couple of days, or acupressure, a couple
Right,
of days or a
right.
week. And he was telling me, yeah, I spent months, you know, I spent at least a month learning shiatsu or this or that and whatever. We had different sections we had to focus on. So
My question to you, Randy, is after all your training, your
Yeah.
schooling, what was your final student loan amount?
like I said, it's about close to 1,500, or not 15,000,
$15,000.
all together with all the taxes.
All right. I went for my accounting degree, folks. My original student loan was $23,000.
Wow.
I tried to pay it over the years as best as I could. I'm disabled. My student loan now is $150,000,
Wow.
and the rest of that is interest. They attack $200 off my payment that I get from Social Security, which I worked over 30 years to achieve. It's not subsidized. It's from earning. It's from working. All right. So they take $200 a month out of my Social Security to pay back that student loan that was originally $23,000, which is now $150,000 because of interest. Do you see what the reality is, folks? That's what the reality is. When I get that bill from the government, I smile, I laugh. I'm like, really?
Yeah. The reality is that there are CNAs. You know, what do they make? $16 an hour,
No,
and
actually,
it costs about $30,000.
I'll put it this way, since you brought up CNAs, I did not graduate from this because apparently, for people who don't know what CNAs are, they're certified nursing assistants. You'll find them in the hospice, you know.
Been
places.
there, done it.
Lowest
Yeah.
level of nursing.
Yeah.
I was a corpsman in the Navy.
Mhm.
I went to school and trained as an EMT, got full license. I was a CNA. That's how I met my ex-wife. I know all about.
And the whole thing is, when I was training in there, these people are only paid like minimum wage. And one of the reasons why I left the school.
Minimum wage. I hate that term.
I understand that, but they were being paid.
Living wage, brother. There needs to be a living wage.
Yeah, but they were paid what they could. The best way to say is what Chris Rock said is minimum wage is basically the boss's way of saying, if I could get away with paying you less legally, I would, type of thing. But getting back to what I'm saying is, as a CNA, these people were literally trying to drop all the work onto the students because they didn't want to do it, because they weren't happy, they weren't being paid enough to do it, and it was just a horrible environment. And these people, you know, have made, you know, went through all that, you know, changing, you know, the adult diapers, caring for these elderly people,
Right.
and yet they're paid just as much, you know, minimum wage to do all this extra stuff, and then they're on time limits.
Yeah.
One of
Is your mom and dad worth minimum wage?
And the whole thing
Just
was,
saying.
I had to actually quit because we had a checkoff list. You know, we had to have these certain things done by a certain time. But what happened at the end of it was, I couldn't do it because there was just not enough time. Because I had to do, you know, give a resident a bath, dress them up, all in a small amount of time. And they don't. It's like if it's one person, it's one thing. But they would drop like 1 or 3 people on you.
You know, a group.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you get to after graduation, it's 6. But again, these people are paid minimum wage, and a lot of them are trying to get out of it. So, you know, when Josh said,
Especially saying, you know, considering how much their schooling costs for what they get paid.
well, it depends on.
Well,
what
it's
you
not
do.
even that. It's the work. It's the type of work. I
Well, if you
mean,
paid them enough, it doesn't
think about
hard
it.
work
People are
and paid
dropping.
well is fine,
They're
but they're
putting
not
their
paid enough.
family. Look, they're putting their family members, Josh, into a home. All right,
Yeah, I'm
to
not
get the
disagreeing with you.
utmost
I'm saying
care.
they deserve to be paid more. I'm saying
They're-
it's outrageous.
yeah, I
They're not
know.
getting paid
I
more,
know.
and they're
I
paying that
gotta
much
say
for
something.
schooling.
But there's people out there who say no, they're getting paid enough.
Well,
those people are dead wrong because
They're
how
stupid.
could you pay if your schooling costs $30,000 right there? Shouldn't you be able to pay off your schooling within 4 years?
I got to say something. This is important. It depends. Okay, for CNAs, it depends on how you went to school. Like, okay, there's a company here in town. They have their own.
Beverly Enterprises.
I'm not gonna.
I won't say any names.
But the whole thing is, they actually will train you for it. You don't pay anything unless you go to a different company, or you go to a different place. But if you go trained by these people and you work for them, you're taken care of. But now, if you're talking about going to regular schooling, beyond working for this company.
Yeah, we're talking about schools that you pay for in cash.
Yeah, and then you're talking about having it harsh. I've even known people who went to, became medical assistants from the same vocational school I went to. And they were telling me that they have to do an internship.
We've been talking about the story for like 20 minutes. I think we need to.
If you want to move on, I mean, it's a great story. It's great. We can talk about it.
Let me just finish this saying.
Let him wrap it up.
Finishing statements, 2 minutes each.
Okay. The last thing I'm going to say is, those people, like I said, were medical assistants. They were being paid minimum wage, and they had to do their internship, which meant they had to go to school, they had to have their own job, plus volunteer time, because a lot of the internships weren't paid. So these people were losing even more money, and they were paid maybe minimum wage, maybe $1 more.
Right.
And it's like, these people are literally doing, injections, blood draws, taking urine samples and whatever samples they need. And it's like, you're paying them minimum wage, and that's not right, for them to be paid that when their schooling is going to cost, like Josh said, about close to $30,000 because of all the material they have, the books.
60 seconds?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, my thought, my medical training came through the military. So I didn't have to pay for that. I got paid for my medical training. So I come from a different point of view. But nonetheless, I agree 100% with Randy because I truly believe that the minimum wage should be a living wage. Not, I think you should be able to live off the minimum wage. Because that's going to do so much more. It's going to, one, he's taking care of your mom and your dad, who you don't want to take care of anymore. Not being harsh on you, not saying you don't want to, but you're wrapped up in your job. You're wrapped up in life.
60 seconds wrong.
And you got to take care of your life. I understand that. But he's taking care of mom and dad when they can't take care of themselves. And they're throwing up and they're going to the bathroom on themselves and stuff like that. And he's got to deal with that. I've done it.
Quickly, I'm going to say this. I'm not in that field anymore. So I've not.
Okay, well, he's done it.
I've done it.
So. The whole point is, take care of the people who are taking care of your people. You see what I'm saying? Take care of the people who are taking care of your people. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, guys. That was an intense story, and I think I've got us a lot more fun story coming up, and I think you'll enjoy this one, Randy.
Okay.
Iceland is planning to build the first Norse temple in 1,000 years. Construction is to begin in March. It is being constructed by the Atheist Association. Are you familiar with these guys?
I'm just happy to.
Now, a quote from them: since its inception in 1972, the Atheist Association membership has tripled to nearly 2,400 out of Iceland's 330,000 population, making it the second biggest religion next to Christianity in the country.
I'm just happy to hear this.
Do they want to kill people?
No.
No, let me.
Okay, I don't care then.
Quote from them. We got a quote here from the leader, just so you understand.
They're not ISIS.
Yeah.
I don't believe anyone believes in a one-eyed man who is riding about on a horse with 8 feet. We see the stories as poetic metaphors and a manifestation of the forces of nature and human psychology. What do you think of their views?
Well, here's the thing about that is, if you go down into all the different things, like, Drew, and I'm basing it off the stuff that I'm reading from Kevin Hearn, who writes the Iron Druid Chronicles. And basically, he's talking about how the stories are kind of metaphors in a way, where these people were actually humans who eventually, and this is based on his book, where they evolved because of all the stories and the legends about them to become gods, in the druidic, form. Now, the thing is with the Norse gods, I'm just happy to hear about this, because of all the things. Everything has to go, every single religion, and I excuse myself on this one because I'm not sure on it, but every religion always talks about, connection with nature and each other. Well, for me, even in some of the martial arts that I really like ninjutsu, one of the things that the Grand Master keeps talking about is you got to get back into nature, getting connected to the universe, or in Ron's case, God's connection with God, if you will. The whole thing is, so when they talk about poetic metaphors, that if that's what they want to believe, that's great. The thing is, the main part is the manifestation of the forces of nature and connection with it is what I'm guessing at. The thing is about the one-eyed man, everybody has their own views on whether or not they happened. Like, for instance, in Buddhism, these people ascended to Buddhahood, which was godlike, because they became enlightened. They understood the things they need to do and rose, and I guess you could say spiritually evolved to a different level. So, I mean, hearing this, you could see me smiling, my grinning, because it's for so long, we've had all these different things coming up about, Christianity. They're throwing up, churches, mosques, or, synagogues, Buddhist temples. You have all these things being built for all these other religions. But where has there been, a place for a temple people, for the Norse gods? People, over the years may not still believe in some of the older gods, like the Greek gods and this and that. But at the same time, it's good to start seeing that people are trying to reconnect with the old ways. And if everybody has their own view of what they think is the way that it's supposed to be, and the whole thing is, as we evolve, as we grow, our views change because we evolve to different things. What happened back in the Viking days, I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what they were being told. So, but at the same time, I also know that there's a lot of poems and stories about, and I know I'm taking a lot of time, but there's a great story about Loki.
No worries, this is your story, man.
Yeah,
this is
about Loki.
All in your court.
About Loki, Thor, and I think Thor's assistant. And what happened is he was told to go somewhere, and he had to go through these 3 challenges. The first one was he was told they had to run a certain distance. Well, he had his messenger who was the fastest runner, and the runner just took off, did what he did, but it was a race against an old man or something. Then the second test was that Loki had to drink this this big this big container that had all this alcohol in it. And the third one was Thor had to fight had to wrestle an old woman. Well, those stories basically came out as the messenger had to run against time, that his opponent was actually the concept of time. The second thing about Loki drinking that giant, alcohol thing was you have the waves, because you have the water coming in and then going back out, coming back in, going back out. And this is what I remember from the story. And when Thor, wrestled the old woman, he put her down to one knee. The woman represented death. So, I mean, that kind of shows how far they're willing to go. Another thing that I liked was the fact that in these poetic metaphors, in these stories, these gods were human, in a way. They had their own flaws. The Greek gods did a lot of things, and I posted this on your Facebook about Stephen Fry. These people, these other gods, they were flawed. They were somewhat human. They made mistakes. So, of course, these stories help people realize, okay, no one is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the gods have made mistakes. So for me, I really like this. I like hearing about this. I actually, if I could, I will actually try to attend, go there just to see it.
Yeah, the temple will be looking like a half-buried dome. They're actually going to build it into the ground. It's going to be hosting weddings, ceremonies, and events. And it will have, I believe it's said to have like altars to worship to the Norse gods. Do you have anything to talk about the story?
Absolutely.
Let's rock, Ron.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say, there's a lot of religions in the world. A lot. Thousands. And that's literal. And each religion has their beliefs. And within each religion, even within the Christian religion, there are differentiations. Why you have denominations? Why do you have Baptist in the Christian religion? Why do you have Pentecostal? Why do you have, do you see what I'm saying? There's a mixture.
Latter-day Saint.
Because even in Christianity, they got their own way of thinking and interpretation of their writings and what they believe.
Except, I have to say, except the West Baptist Borough Church, then we...
well, they're all on their own.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're smoking and toking
we
and
just want to make sure
sniffing.
that
And,
we said that
I don't want to judge anybody, but God's the judge.
I'm going to say it, no matter how offensive it is, the Westboro Baptist Church is the Christian equivalent of the ISIS to Muslims.
I want to say, as a Christian, the Westboro Baptist Church is not a representative of most Christians. And that is the honest to God truth.
That's the point I was making as well.
Just want to throw that out there.
No one says all Muslims are like ISIS. We hate ISIS. No one says.
Right.
There are people that say all Christians are like that, but they're wrong.
And the point that you brought up ISIS, that's the point I want to bring up. This here, I don't believe anyone believes in a one-eyed man who is riding about on a horse with 8 feet. How do you know? In that religion. There are some people who believe that literal in that religion. Yeah. That's why you have ISIS.
Yeah.
Because they take crap literal,
Well,
and they go, what? If you take the Christian Bible and go to the Old Testament, we should be stoning people
to death for disobeying.
But,
what is this, an F? Bury him up to his head and throw rocks at him.
Well, the thing is, that's why it says we see the stories as poetic metaphors. That's the thing I like, is that they clarify what they're trying to say about why they see it as poetic metaphors. They may not, just because they may not believe it, doesn't mean like others won't. But like you said, they're not taking it to the extreme level.
But the whole point of the story is they're building a temple, right?
Yeah. Announcement of the temple.
Let them. As a Christian, I say, go for it. I believe in the freedom of religion in this country. If you start quashing down any religion, that opens the door to quashing down Christianity. So let people believe what they want to believe.
I want to say this.
And keep it that way.
I'm very gracious to hear him say that, because I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there was a school recently that was constantly pushing, these people were passing out flyers and pamphlets about Christianity. So and then all of a sudden these groups were like, you know what? You guys are passing out your religious stuff. We want to pass out ours.
Which you should be able to.
And what happened is groups are doing Satanism. They were
okay.
And the whole thing was, parents lost their minds. People got upset. The school had to say no more doing that. It's like, okay, these people, and this is where, like I said,
those are weak Christians to me. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are weak Christians to me. Those who come unglued because someone wants to erect a satanic symbol on a political site where there's the 10 Commandments. Those are weak Christians who want to stop that. Because you think that by them erecting that statue, it's going to take more people away from Christianity. And you don't want your kids exposed to that. Well, you know what? If what you believe, if you're walking the walk, not just talking the talk, your kids are going to believe what they see. Not what you tell them, but by what they see. All right? And if you start telling people, no, you can't put this here, then that opens the door for shutting down. You can't put the 10 Commandments.
So I believe what you mean by seeing people acting as good Christians in their community.
Yes.
Yeah, just to clarify.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Is that, the one thing about it is the symbols. Like you see that on the pagan, on the thing, it's this pentacle or pentagram, depending on who you call it.
It's a pentacle.
Yeah, it's a pentacle. We'll go with that. Because like I said, some people call it a pentagram, but the thing is, I've actually had this where I went to, work. I showed up at work one day with one of them.
Uh-huh.
And the guy started looking at me like I was a devil worshiper. I'm like, okay, First of all, that is a protection symbol for a lot of people.
Yeah, right.
It also has a lot more meaning in that.
Well, the pentagram is a protection symbol from
Yeah.
the pagan religion.
Yeah, and
the pentacle is different. It's a goat head. It's a satanic symbol.
That's
but the pentagram, it stands for the 5-star. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
Stands for earth, fire, water, and it stands for protection. I understand the
Yeah.
pagan religion
And the thing
to a
is-
certain extent.
And that's the thing is, a lot of people, like I said, because a pentacle, like I said, pentagram, pentacle.
The non-goats had one.
Yeah, the non-goat has one. The thing is, a lot of people don't realize is that, when you look at it, you can easily tell if it's, supposed Satan worshippers, or Satanists, is because usually the topmost part of the star is pointing south. But when you have it pointing north, and there have been stories about it, and I don't know, you could probably know more about it than I do, but supposedly, depending on which book you read, some people said it was Raphael, others said it was Gabriel, who gave a ring to King Solomon with that exact symbol. And that was able to help him control demons. I don't know.
Randy, even the swastika was a Christian symbol at one point.
I thought it was a Buddhist one. Well,
they all roll into one, brother.
At a point, yeah.
They all roll into one.
I don't know anything
I mean,
about that.
if you go through history and you really look at history and you look at like religion and stuff like that, people have said that Jesus Christ is nothing more than a play on Horus. All right, and there's a lot of like historical things where there has been deities who have come and has singular gods. Don't think everything across the world. You gotta study religion.
there you go, right there.
You
just
gotta
said-
study
there-
religion.
You just said it right there. Study it, because we have people who, when they hear pagan, they automatically think that we're devil worshippers.
Cutting goats open on the
Yeah,
altar.
and doing all, and here's the
Right.
thing, and I will say this, and it was the greatest line I've ever heard from a movie. It was called Drive Angry with Nicolas Cage. I don't know if you
Right,
saw it.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Great film. The best line in it had to come from the guy who was known as the accountant, the guy who came to pick up Nicolas Cage, and he said, "You basically the gist of it was he told Nicolas Cage, go out there and stop this a-hole because Satan himself gets pissed off when people sacrifice children in his name. It annoys the hell out of him. Because,
Right.
He doesn't want that.
He never asked for that.
And then, of course, you have the other things about Lucifer. Now, I personally will say this, because, I'm going to leave, before I get off and we go to the next story. A lot of the Bible scholar, and I've read the Bible, I've checked it, I've even, and this, I was talking to you earlier before we started the show, that I got in trouble for asking these questions. And one of the questions I asked the pastor, and I was told to have a dangerous mind, was, number one, where does it say exactly in the Bible that Satan and Lucifer are the same being? And a lot of the Bible scholars are saying they are not the same being. What happened was, Lucifer said, I can do just as good as you, Dad. And God's like, okay. And then he left a third of the angels, which became the Gregorian, and all that happened. Then there was another...
See, I believe something different happened. I believe that Jesus Christ, being the Son of God, had a relationship with God that Lucifer didn't. And he was the angel that covereth, according to the Bible, which means he oversaw the throne of God. And I believe that there was jealousy on Lucifer's part because God shared things with Jesus that he did not share with Lucifer because Jesus was the Son of God.
Well, and the other thing is, some people, and we're going to get into the,
I mean, that's getting into deep
that's
stuff,
getting-
right?
that's getting into deep
I'm gonna
stuff.
stay out of this. I don't believe in any of this anyway.
Look, the thing is, one of the stories that they said was when the third of the angels came down, they became the guardian angels of the people.
Right.
The other and then at the same time there was an uprising from Satan.
And then there was like the one where like Satan's like demon tail like swept him with him.
No, we're not going to go into those ones. But the whole thing was that became that whole concept. And a lot of the from what I've heard about Luciferians who believe in Lucifer is that he was the guy who became in charge of Earth. Now some people even say hell is Earth. It's the lowest form that we can go to. And then over time, you have to go through all these trials here to build yourself up, to go to the next evolutionary state, which could be heaven, whatever you want to call it.
Next spiritual state.
Yeah, the next
A higher
spiritual
plane.
state. Yeah, higher plane, whatever. The whole thing is, my personal belief is that Lucifer and Satan aren't the same. And I got in trouble for asking that, saying, where is it said exactly in the Bible? And the priest or the pastor told me, you have to interpret it, which I believe is a sin to interpret the Bible, which is...
Well, the Bible itself says that the Scripture is not open to private interpretation.
And that was the whole
And
thing.
that's a Scripture.
And the whole, yeah, so
if you're looking for me to quote Scripture, verse and whatever, I don't read the Bible like that. You may, but take what I say, go Google the verse, you'll find it.
But also be open-minded and don't just close off. Because I've had too many people, when I try to explain my views on things, shut me off. So please open up and at least listen to what we're trying to say, because you might find it's similar.
And to clarify, I think what you were talking about, Ron, was you do quote scripture, but not like 2 Corinthians. Just like if you're a Harry Potter fan, you're like, hey, remember that part of the story?
When the Bible was written, there wasn't 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 3. The Bible says, the Lord, it wasn't like that. They didn't quote it like that. There was no chapter and verse.
And the other thing I like about you, Ron, is the fact that you're willing to be openly saying that. I do know from what I've heard over the years is that there were a lot of the original Bible that was taken out by the Catholic Church over the century.
Ask, when you talk to a Christian, ask them how their Bible came together. Christians, I'm putting this out to you. I want an atheist, I want a pagan, I want anybody to come up to you and ask you, how do you have the Bible today and the books that are in it? Not the Apocrypha, but the books that are there, why they're there, what happened.
Not the authorship.
Just saying.
Why are these stories in this book?
Most Christians will not be able to answer that question. They just believe because they've been told by mommy and daddy. They've never studied it. They just know what they know, what they think they know.
The thing is, I heard what the rumor was. I'm only going to leave it at that. I heard the rumor. Me and you will discuss that, because I want these people to actually take the time to look.
Constantine had a lot to do with the Bible.
And the whole thing is, for me, like I said, be open-minded, because some of the books are, like some people say the Book of Enoch should be in the book. But then the Book of Enoch contradicts some of the things, like,
how do they determine which books?
And that was the thing is, and from the legend I heard was that the Vatican put these certain books on a table and said the ones that they left the room, and the ones that were left on the table were the ones that they were going to put in the Bible. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm sure no one else came into the room and had any choice in what books would be left.
The Book of Enoch, and this is the biggest part about why the Book of Enoch was eliminated, was supposedly, and like I said,
they got rid of things that made the church look bad.
Exactly, and it contradicted what
that's the truth.
Yeah.
As a Christian, I know this.
Yeah, my favorite one of those.
And any Christian, anybody who claims to be a real Christian and knows the Bible, you'll know that if you study how the Bible came about, you'll know that there were books left out because it contradicted the Catholic Church.
You wanted to say something, Josh?
That's the bottom line.
I lost my train of thought.
All right. You want to cut this story off and move on?
No, I'm going to finish this last
All right, wrap it up.
One of the things I did here, because we're talking about the contradictions, is that the story of Adam and Eve, the serpent was not actually a bad guy in the Book of Enoch. He was actually trying to stop it, trying to warn it. But then again, if you really read the Bible in its literal sense, I have certain friends who post this all over the place, talking about how Lucifer was trying to get off the knowledge. Now, of course, in the Jedi, groups, the word Jedi means light bringer or light bearer. Lucifer means the same thing, I think in Hebrew or whatever, or Latin. So the whole thing is, like, there's a lot more to what is really there, and that's why this is something I've always said is, if you're going to go with a religion, you don't. I'm going to say it like Bruce Lee does: find what's useful and keep it, and if it's not useful to you, don't use it, because then you have people who are like, oh, they're God-fearing people. Oh, we're warriors for God and this and that. It's like, but you're not even doing some of the things that you should be doing, like Deuteronomy, I think is what you called it, where they said that if a woman is not a virgin upon marriage, she's supposed to be taken back to and if she's accused of it, and it turns out to be true, she's supposed to be stoned to death.
There'd be a lot of stoned women today. Oh, there are.
So the whole thing is,
not necessarily with rocks, but they're stoned.
So like I said, don't just judge. When you see this story, don't just judge it. Take the time to open your heart, open your mind, and look at what they're trying to say, because even in the end, you may not agree with it, but understand, these are people too, At least open your eyes and look a little bit. Don't just go with blind faith into something without taking the time to go, okay, does this fit me or not? Because a lot of people I've seen, they jumped into things like, into Christianity, and not just Christianity, but into Wicca, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
They start doing a lot of things, and it turns out it wasn't working for them, but they didn't really take the time, And I'm going to say this, if you're going to go try to join a church, whether it be a pagan church, whether it be a Christian church or whatever, go inside, look at it, see what it is, and see if it fits you. Because, once you join in and they start telling you this stuff and you start not agree with it, what do? They wind up condemning you. I actually am one of the, me and, the church that my family goes to don't get along because I've asked the questions that I'm not supposed to ask, because for me, these people never actually, most of the time, never told, we're always told to have blind faith. I was actually told that myself. I have a dangerous mind. You have to just give your faith in God. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't work for me because, according to your book, I'm created in God's image. I'm created the way He wanted me to be. So if I'm questioning things,
that's the way He made you.
That's the way He made me. So, like I said, just go.
I love people who question.
And that's always a good thing. And that's one of the biggest things that happened is that the Catholic Church, and I've said in a lot of other churches, mainly the Catholic Church, except the new Pope. I love the new Pope. He's the one man who will push me towards back to Catholicism, the way he's acting, because he's gone out of the norm. He's doing a lot of things that the other ones would never do. So
true. I have to agree with that.
Said, take your time. Take the time.
But even he says he's probably not going to be a pope very long. Did you hear that?
We've gone way off topic.
Yeah.
Let's not start getting into
let's move on.
We were talking about a temple. Now we're talking about the
All right. Well, that's the way it goes.
So,
That's the way it
runs.
runs.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Next story.
Let's move on to our next story. Sperm donor sues lesbian couple for visitation rights. Now, you heard me right. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide here. The couple had a son who was conceived by at-home artificial insemination in June of 2013 under the counsel of a physician. The couple already had a toddler from a different donor and had drawn up contracts in which both men relinquished their legal paternity. Now, so how is this going to work? According to the state that it happened in...
What state is that, just by the way? Do we know?
I think it's New Jersey, yeah, because it's from the New Jersey News here.
Okay.
It was in New Jersey, and the reason, because of the laws in New Jersey, because it was not done in a hospital facility, and it was done at home, even with a board-certified doctor, they were able to get visitation rights. Right now, so the first one just has visitation rights, and the second one, I think this is kind of fitting. He has visitation rights as well, but he has been appointed by the court to pay a $332 a month child support, which is totally unfair. My thoughts on this story, of course, is that they made a contract. The intent, everybody came into this with the intent that the donors would never come into contact with the children ever, and all paternity had been relinquished. So, that should have been honored. What do you guys think?
I'm going to say it like this, because first off, when I read what this story was, I was completely shocked, because that's not something, because I've actually heard stories like that before. The thing I don't know is, who was the one who wrote, you say that they drew up contracts. Was it legally done, or did they just write it up? Because
it was done with an official lawyer.
Okay,
it was done correctly. It was found in court to be invalid because it was not performed in the hospital. And the thing is,
I can say in this point, because I've dealt with lawyers myself, if your lawyer is not doing, if he does not know this, you're probably spending a lot of money on somebody who doesn't, who you shouldn't be spending it on. Because if he is a lawyer in that state, he should have known this would not have been acceptable, or at least did a little more research before he said do this. The other thing I don't understand is you just said that one of the donors has to pay $320 a month. It's like, why when the other one isn't? That's kind of not fair, because one of them is paying child support, the other one isn't. Shouldn't they both be doing it? So this one's a little weird on me, because it's just like, I've heard of things like this happening, but usually the donor, depending on where they go, unless they actually just had the guy I'm trying to find a nice way to say this. Like,
but it was done under the physician supervision, so I don't know this for sure, but I'm imagining that a sample was given to a physician, and the physician, the couple administered it themselves under the supervision of the physician.
My question is, where did they get I mean, was this done at did the guy get it from a paternity clinic? Did the guy just, the donor go in and shoot the gun in a glass? I can't believe I'm saying this. Shoot it in a glass, and then they just could have turkey based or stuff. How was that done?
I imagine it was, the details of it implied that they went out and they sought out donors, someone that they may have known, an acquaintance. They thought he was a good guy. They wanted this person's genetics for their children, and wrote up a contract with them. But I don't know that for sure. But that's what the story, the way it was written, implied.
Okay, and I'm just gonna leave it with this final thought because I know, like I said, in a lot of states, if you are a donor, you don't have any rights to see your child unless the mother contacts you. I know Melissa Etheridge and her partner had one of the David Crosby, I think is the singer's name. Ron probably might know.
I know. I don't know who you're talking about, but I know that Melissa Etheridge had a couple of kids by musicians, right?
It was one musician in particular. But
well, it was David Crosby.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
From Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah, and the whole thing was, the only reason that he got involved is because she's like, well, we wanted people to know who the father is, because we're very grateful and happy because we have, he was a donor. But in this case, they let it be publicly known. In this case, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it as this one's not one I really understand because I just don't know the laws enough. So I'm going to back off on that one.
I think I have one more slide on this. Let me check. If not, I'm going to go back real quick. No.
Oh. From a Christian perspective, all right, this is just a perfect example that, there's a difference between the Christian world and the secular world. And you got to be smart and make sure that whatever is in writing is in writing. If it's not in writing, I know you may think word of mouth or just vocal is good. Everything must be in writing if you're going to do a contract with somebody, and you must live up to that contract as a Christian, whatever the terms are. If you agree not to see this child and to give up all rights to this child, that's what you've agreed to. Whether they're lesbian or whatever, that's not what I'm debating here.
On your honor as a human, you should.
As your honor as a human being, honor the contract. That's serving Christ and honoring Christ by keeping to that contract and keeping to your word.
I think there is,
and that's the way I feel about it.
I think there is something to be said. I completely agree that you should honor your contract, but there is, I should say, some honor in these gentlemen wanting to have some sort of paternal instincts and wanting to be a part of their children's
But
life.
they knew what they were getting in the get-go. Yeah. These are two lesbians who don't want men involved.
Yeah,
they just want the baby, but they don't want the men involved.
And the other thing is...
And they should know that.
The lawyers were the ones who drew up the contracts, but again, it's partially the lawyer's fault on that one because they should have known the laws of that state to say, well, this is not going to hold up in court. Because this is what the state law. Now, unless this thing was made before the law was changed, this contract was made, maybe they can try to say, well, this and that. But first of all, like Ron said and you said, you signed a contract, you should follow it, and I agree with that. But at the same time, they did everything that they thought was correct. The problem is, the lawyers are at blame here because they didn't stop and say, well, you need to make sure, Well,
I disagree with you there, Randy. I don't think the lawyers are to blame. I think that people who don't do their due diligence and don't investigate and know what's going on.
Also,
lawyers are shady. I'm sorry.
And also,
they're looking for money. That's all they care about. Money.
This could have been a new precedent. If maybe this was the first case like this where it happened and the lawyers were unaware. This is just a law that lawyers are just now become aware of because of this new precedent. That could be it.
That could be it.
Well, that could be it, but I mean, it should correct things. I mean, people. I mean, to me, the contract should be clear. If you don't have a clear contract, it opens the door up for this, and that's it.
Well, let's move on to the next story.
Right,
this one, in the wake of Ferguson, I think there have been a lot of doubters as to the police being as bad as everybody has been portraying them on the news. So I think there's been some new information that has come out that I think is very interesting. According
you ain't going there, are you?
According to a study done by the Department of Justice, they found that 75% of Ferguson residents have an outstanding warrant. The Department of Justice.
Did I read that correctly?
That's correct.
Yeah. 75% of the citizens there in Ferguson have an outstanding warrant.
Yeah, the Department of Justice's 102-page report is a rich source of damning facts about the Ferguson criminal justice system. But tucked halfway in and passed over quickly is a truly revelatory set of figures, the arrest warrant data for the Ferguson Municipal Court. Even internal police department communications found the number of arrest warrants to be, quote, staggering. By December 2014, over 16,000 people had an outstanding arrest warrants that had been issued by the court in a population of 21,000.
Gee, I wonder how many of that 16,000 were blacks. You got that on here?
I have that.
I want to see that.
In 2013, 32,975 offenses associated with warrants, so there were 1.5 warrant-related offenses for every city resident.
Wow.
To give some context as to how truly extreme this is, a comparison may be useful. In 2014, the Boston Municipal Court System, a city with 645,000 people, issued about 2,300 criminal warrants. The Ferguson Municipal Court issued 9,000 for a population 1/3 the size of Boston's.
Wow.
The thousands upon thousands of warrants that are issued, according to the Department of Justice, are not to protect public safety, but rather to facilitate fine collections. Residents are routinely charged with minor administrative infractions. Most of the arrest warrants stem from the traffic violations, but every conceivable human behavior has been criminalized. Offenses can be found anywhere, including citations for manner of walking in roadway, high grass and weeds, 14 kinds of parking violations, failure to obey. Henry Davis, a Ferguson resident, was brutally beaten by 4 Ferguson officers. He found himself charged with destruction of official property for bleeding on their uniforms. Now, to answer your question, 92% of the arrest warrants were for African
Wow,
Americans.
imagine that. No shocker there.
That's all the slides for the story. Let's get into it.
No shocker there.
Well, I'm going to say this is that even, and I think it was the Ferguson case where they condemned a Caucasian, police officer, and then soon after that, the media did what they could to condemn this man. But it turned out that there was an African American officer who said, "I'm the guy who shot this person in Ferguson. Why are you guys going after this Caucasian cop when I'm the one who did it?" But they, of course, the media wiped that thing out. And for me to hear this, I'm kind of afraid. And Josh, if I were you, I'd be afraid too, because for all we know, we have outstanding warrants on ourselves.
Yeah.
Because
No, we're not black.
oh yeah, there you go. But the whole thing is, for us to hear that, it is ridiculous. Because yeah, I understand that, but then this is actually something me and Josh talked about in depth. Is like how people are pitting, racism against each other. Because now, all these people are being arrested. 92% of them are African Americans. Well, and then the cops are doing what they're doing and instigating things. I mean, a lot of the cops are losing control. So for me, right now, I'm seeing this. I'm just shocked.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, the Ferguson population of African American is in somewhere about 25% of the population. So to have 92% of the arrest warrants,
Right.
It's pretty hard to say that there is no racism happening in the department.
Why the DOJ came back and said that there is definite discrimination within that force.
Yes.
And the whole thing of the officers beating a guy and then saying, then him charged with
The bill. It's putting them with the bill for a new shirt. That's like when Russia, they used to kill people by firing squad and build the family for the bullets.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
that to me is, I really don't even know how to react to this, because that to me shows how much, they're trying to pit people against each other. And that's been something that's been going on a long time.
Yeah.
People are being
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
All right. Who was the black guy that got killed in Ferguson? What was his name?
Oh, man.
I don't
There's
even
been so
remember.
many names.
Michael Brown.
There's
Michael
so
Brown,
many
yeah.
names. that
What
I-
was the white guy's name, the white cop?
Oh, dang it.
Yeah, I don't even know
It's-
either.
Something
that's some-
Wilson. Something Wilson.
Yeah.
We all saw the picture of him looking like a hamster and glaring menacingly.
But you know what? Okay. He was innocent, found innocent, which I believe.
Well,
which I believe he was innocent in this situation.
He wasn't found innocent. He was never brought to trial.
They said because
there wasn't enough evidence.
They're saying all the evidence they have that they've gathered from everybody that was there in the video and all that says no. And I believe at this moment, this cop did not do a racial thing. He actually acted within the law, and this was a thing that got out of control that sparked this whole thing. But does that mean that I believe that this cop never acted in discrimination? Nope.
Well, again, the whole thing
So, karma, I guess.
The whole thing was, as I said,
But Michael Brown's dead.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, there was another cop who was African American. He held a press conference. He's the one who said, I shot Michael Brown. I'm the one who shot him. Why are you guys going after and trying to condemn my fellow officer who's, because they were trying to make it a race war here. They were trying to make it look like a hate crime, a race killing, when this African American officer literally came out in a press conference and said, why are you guys going after him? I'm the guy who shot him.
Why is this a race thing to begin with? Why does Al Sharpton go running his ass over to something like this every time something like this comes up? Al Sharpton's there. But if anything happens where some white person is brutally killed, do you see Al Sharpton there?
Let's say
where's he at?
There's an extremely underreported story. I don't know the details of the police shooting involving a Native American woman that.
No, I know reverse discrimination.
Yeah.
I grew up in Pomona, California, where the high school I went to was 80% blacks. I was the minority. All right? Did I experience discrimination? Every day. Every day from black men, black guys. This is the truth.
From those students.
Just because I was white. Hey, white boy. Hey, cracker. Hey, hunky. Just because I was white. I didn't do nothing. Discrimination works both ways. And it's all about power and control. And when people in this country, I believe that the politicians and the people who are in charge of this country want separation of race and want us to be divided. They want that. They want that total.
But in this case, Ferguson, you would say
Ferguson needs a butt whooping.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this much is that hearing all this stuff, hearing this, and he talked about Al Sharpton. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people, probably heard about this. There was a guy who's a production assistant or a worker on the show Tosh.0 on Comedy Central. He was killed, unarmed, by police officers. There was very little news attention on it. But
I know that story.
And it was sad because it was like, he was killed. Then Josh, who posted ones a couple of times about how the cop, one cop jumped in front of a elementary school teacher's car, shot her and said, well, I was fearing for my life when he jumped in front of the car. The video showed him jumping in front of the car and shooting her.
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't have feared for your life if you didn't dive in front of a moving vehicle.
True.
And stuff like that. It's like, it's very, very hard. And in this case, there's just no way around it. You can see it right there. Well, 92% of it, of these things that were issued were against African Americans. I still believe that what is trying to go on is that they're trying to separate everybody from each other.
That's right.
Because what's going to happen is,
if we band together and come together as one race, the human race, then we're going to start standing up to the government and their inequalities and what they're doing, and we're going to be a powerful force. They don't want us to be a powerful force.
As long as we're too busy fighting each other, we can't fight them.
Because no matter how many jets, no matter how many tanks, we still outnumber them big time as one. And they do not want that. They never want that. They're always going to keep separation.
The other thing is, they have this thing that found all over the place. It says, I didn't stand up because, when these people were asking for help. I didn't stand up when these people were asking for help. I didn't stand up when these people asked for help. So by the time that, everything was taken, there was nothing. Nobody was there to defend these people's rights and to stand up for them because there was nothing left because you didn't speak. We are actually here speaking about this. We think this is wrong. At least I do. I think it's completely wrong. And
this makes me sick to my stomach.
I think it's wrong too.
So we're all saying this is wrong.
We're all in agreement on this, folks.
So we're speaking on your guys' behalf and letting you guys know, hey, we know this is wrong. We're going to make the effort to at least step up and say something about it to defend you guys, because what's going to happen if we don't? Well, down the road, we're going to be in position. And quoting V from Vendetta, you know, the people should be afraid of their government. Our government should be afraid of their people. And the thing is, we're trying to do whatever they can to do, you know, what they can to stop us from uniting, because they're afraid. And I've even heard, like, you know, our own military has said, you know, if they have to start firing upon our own civilians, they won't do it. And that's another thing they're afraid of. That's why they're trying to slowly, and this is conspiracy theory, they're slowly working into doing that. Now, this just kind of proves to me racism still exists. There's just no way to say, you know, say it's not when you have 92% of.
I think it's manufactured, Randy.
Well, you may be manufactured.
I think it's really manufactured.
It may be manufactured, but it's still there. And the thing is, that's the problem is, you have the media, you have all these things going on that's showing all these things. Like, you know, and you're hearing all these different crimes. You see all these things. And what is the people's going to do? They're going to react the way that they think that they're supposed to. Instead, you know, and it's said, hate is not a born trait. It is something learned. You know, when me, Josh, and Ron were all kids, we didn't see anybody as bad or this or that when we were kids. We saw them as they're all just the same people.
Right.
But over time, with media and what we're taught in perception, because of our perception of things,
or your own family,
yeah,
what you're taught by your own family, and
that will
everything.
lead you into going to that path. And in the great movie, I will say, and I'm going to leave this on the last note, is the movie American History X, one of the greatest films by Edward Norton, because it talks about how he was he was an Aryan race guy. He was a racist. He goes to prison after something happened. I can't remember exactly what he did, but he went to jail.
He curb stomped a guy.
Did the guy die from that or no?
I think so.
Okay, well then, yeah, he committed murder. You know, heat of passion. He goes to jail. But in jail, the guy who's helping him the most was an African American.
Oh, it definitely wasn't heat of passion.
The whole thing was, the guy that was helping him the most, because even his own people turned on him and raped him in prison. So he started focusing, becoming friends with an African American male. When he got out of prison, he tried to reform his brother. But because of the fact that, and sadly at the end of the film, his
spoilers.
Yeah.
Skip ahead 20 seconds if you don't want to know how it ends.
Yeah,
right?
The whole thing is, at the end of it, his brother, he was trying to reform, and his brother was starting to reform. His younger brother, who always looked up to him, tried to reform, but it was too late. And the guy that Edward Norton curb stomped went after his brother and then killed him in a bathroom. So it was the racism that he had learned from his older brother got him shot by an African American student. And even though he was reforming and he was changing he was reforming and changing.
It was too late.
It was too late. And the whole thing was, it's a good lesson about, he was taught his whole life to be this way, and then when he's in prison, the guy that's been his closest friend was an African American male, and then he started realizing, and he cried when he got out of prison, saw all these swastikas on him, all this stuff. He cried because he realized he was wrong for how he acted. So manufactured or not, it's still there, but it's not a born trait. It's learned over time by media and everything and perception. So please, look at this. This is really bad here. Come on.
Yeah,
I'm done.
I'm gonna digress because it just makes me think, just about racism and black and white relations in general. And I think about like movies, because you're talking about movies and stuff, and I think about like Shawshank Redemption, and as a white guy, I'm sorry folks, I've been sick, I'm very sick. As a white man, I watched that movie Shawshank Redemption, and I think, here's this awesome, but I wonder how black people view it when they watch this movie, and what they think about the relationship between this white guy and this black guy in prison, and really what they feel, and the thing of it is we've created an environment you really can't talk to each other about racism, because, oh man, it may be like, you may be racist because You want to learn about somebody's culture. You see what I'm saying? And that's where the world needs to get to, and this country needs to get to. That we're all made up of different cultures, and we should be able to freely talk about our cultures and share our cultures. But I do believe, honestly, 100% in this country, there is an attack on black men.
I'm going to say this last
100%.
My last thought.
And it needs to stop.
About this whole thing that we're talking about racism. I've been told numerous times when I was working, and Josh works in similar places where I've worked, where I've had people calling me a cracker, honky, whitey, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I when I approach them, and I tell, and they're saying, well, you're doing this because you're white, this and that. And I'm like, no, I'm Asian. And a lot of people are like, they get upset. It's like, no, you're not. And then they're calling me an effing liar, this and that. I'm like, my mother came from the Philippines. That makes me Asian. And then they're like, they start shutting up because they're already prejudging. Because that's already where we're at right now, where people are going straight to the race card. And honestly, again...
Well, we're being conditioned to prejudge based upon what we see.
And hearing this, I can guarantee most of that is prejudged. And for the grass being too tall? Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean... I don't know. Let's just move on.
Let's go.
I still can't believe that last
Let's move along. In our next story, an unruly 14-year-old is tased and charged with a felony. And this is a video, so let's go ahead and watch.
Thank you, Jarita. New at 11, a local 8th grader facing a felony charge tonight after deputies say he got so out of control at school he had to be tased. It happened at Powhatan Junior High School today. The sheriff's office says a 14-year-old became unruly in the cafeteria, and when he was taken to the principal's office, he continued causing problems. But when a resource officer got involved, deputies say he then tried to take off, and that's when the officer tased the student. He was taken to the hospital and medically cleared. He's now charged with felony assault on an officer and 2 misdemeanors.
All right, well, that was the video. What do you think, Ron?
Well, I think the young man got exactly what was coming to him. Wait. I was on his side.
He was evading the officer, and he got tased for running. They couldn't have just called his parents and said, have him wait there for police officer to arrive, tase him?
What got me was what he's charged for. Assault.
Well,
but
we
don't know.
He was running from the cops.
No, we don't know exactly what happened. Did he hit the officer?
That's what the story. Okay, the story said that he was unruly in class. He was refusing to stop being unruly, and then when they took him to the responsibility center, and when the officer came, he ran, and the officer tased him. He didn't assault anybody, and then they still charged him with the felony. Go ahead, Randy.
There are videos out there on the news, been on there. They tased a 14-year-old who ran away. What about and we just talked about racism a bit ago, and I'm going back for that for 1 second. They tased an 8-year-old little girl at a preschool or an elementary school because she was unruly too. They tased her, an 8-year-old girl. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the reason for I can understand the guy was 14. He might have been big. He might have been.
I see a difference between an 8-year-old girl and a 14-year-old teenage boy.
I understand that. That's what I was getting at. I don't know the size of the 14-year-old boy. But what I do know is, if he's running away.
Well, the question is, what's unruly mean?
That's the question.
What's the question of unruly?
Yeah, we don't know what unruly is, but
I'd like to know what unruly is, right?
I'm pretty sure unruly isn't. They'd say attack. They would have said.
Well, they're charging him with assaulting an officer, which would tell me he tried to hit the officer or did hit the officer. Which, in that regards, he's got a right to tase him.
Yeah, that's true. But but if the story that we heard was to be believed, the details that we understand is that he was being unruly, whatever that was. He continued to be unruly, and then the officer, was.
I'm a news guy.
He came.
I put unruly with.
Well, is unruly punching an officer?
I don't know. Is it?
Well,
I think they would have specified.
I go by what he's charged with, then what the story is.
What about the guy that was charged with destroying an officer's uniform? He was charged with destroying an officer's uniform. That was the charge.
It wasn't his fault, though.
Yeah, it was a false charge. You can't charge someone with felony assault for evading an officer. That's
they're not saying this is a false charge. They're saying this 14-year-old was unruly.
Yeah,
what is unruly? I want to know what unruly means. Was he just argumentative? Was he mad? Was he hitting the officer? I don't know what unruly means.
And that's the thing is we can't go on that. But what I'm getting at is, and here's the thing, and I'm saying based on what details we do have, the 14-year-old tried to run away and was shot. Now, first off, if you're a police officer and the guy's running away and he's not firing back, he's just running forward, and you shoot him in the back
with the taser.
No, it doesn't matter if it's a taser or a gun. It's the fact that the guy's running away. If he's going the opposite way, he's not throwing anything at you. He is no longer a threat to you.
Well, I disagree with that. I'll clarify. If what Ron believes is true, that he indeed did there was a struggle. If he hit the officer and ran away, the officer had every right to apprehend him. But I don't believe that's the case. I believe he saw the officer coming.
How can you believe that? I can't believe anything because I don't know what unruly means.
If I had to
I don't know what that involves.
If I had to speculate,
what kind of action?
If I had to speculate on what happened, I would imagine that he was being arrested at the time he was in the office, and he shook off the officer and ran and got tased.
I'm sorry, brother. I can't go on speculation. I want to go on facts.
And
come on, man.
I want to, as a news guy, I want to go on facts. I want to know. That's a poor written story. Describe what unruly means. What did he do? What did this teenager do that pushed this cop to tase him?
Yeah, we can't.
I mean, if they can't describe it, now, here's the thing: if the cops can't describe what unruly means, what happened, or refuse to, then that's a different story there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're hiding something.
Well, that's the big thing.
They got to describe what unruly means.
Okay, well, let me put it this way.
As a reporter, I'd ask that cop, what do you mean unruly? What did he do, officer?
Let me pose this question. If he had indeed attacked the officer, why would they need to use a code word like unruly and to kind of cover it up? I mean, if it was clear cut and like he punched an officer in the face, this wouldn't even be a story. He punched an officer in the face.
Well, here's the thing: is that
but they had to cover it up with.
What was the charge? What did they charge him with?
Well, again, this is the thing: is
come on, what was the other guy charged with when he didn't?
Guys, let me say this: when the word unruly comes around, there's so many interpretations of it. Again, like Ron said, since we don't know the exact details of what that word means, because what
in this story,
like for instance, I know a kid recently. I'm not going to say who it is. Went up to the front of class, told his teacher to fuck off. The exact words, fuck off. And and that's considered unruly. Mm-hmm. But at the same time,
doesn't require being tased.
Yeah, and then that little girl, she was being, this 8-year-old girl was being unruly because they couldn't get her to stop.
But I've also seen YouTube videos where a high school student punches his teacher.
And then they don't.
And they want to call that unruly? Is that unruly?
Well, did they tell?
Does that
Would they need to call it unruly? Like they don't need to sugarcoat it. He punched someone. It sounds like it sounds to me.
Oh, but
like,
it's a child, so we got to call it unruly behavior, right?
I guess.
I don't know.
Sounds to me like
I don't know what unruly is in this case.
Yeah, I made my point. I think that if they would, I think if it was that clear cut, this wouldn't have even been a story. They wouldn't be saying he was being unruly. They just would have said he assaulted an officer.
But again, like I said, that 8-year-old girl who was tased. She was throwing a tantrum. She was being unruly. A 14-year-old being unruly could be doing the same thing. We don't really know.
And see, what's unruly with that 8-year-old girl and what's unruly with him are two different stories.
Let me ask you a question. Then, he has no other charges. If he was being, if he was with, it's hard to imagine that he saw an officer and he just went for him. So what was the officer coming to him in the first place? He was charged with
that's the point. You're asking a lot of questions because we don't have the answers to what actually happened, so we can't make a fair fair analogy of what's happened.
Fair enough. Let's get out of this speculation land, and I think we've got a story with a lot more facts. Let's go ahead and go.
All right, here we go.
In this story, an officer is fired for stopping another officer from brutalizing a citizen. There was a call where parents called and said, my child is, I'm worried he's going to commit suicide. Could you send officers? This is another video. Let's watch it.
It was a shocking police beatdown captured 3 years ago on dashboard cam in Pagoda, New Jersey. 2 officers called by parents to assist their emotionally disturbed son into an ambulance instead tackled the man and punched him in the head. When Officer Regina Tasca intervened, prying the officers off the man, she was brought up on charges by her chief and eventually fired. The officers at the time even threatened the victim's father.
In that moment, my son was jumped and punched. Had she not been there doing what she did to protect him, I can pretty much say with certainty that things would have turned out quite differently.
Tasca, the only female and gay officer on the Bogota force, had previously complained to her bosses she was being harassed by fellow officers. And during the departmental hearing to fire her, the attacking officer from neighboring Ridgefield Park Police admitted that he covered up punching the victim. He lied about his training in dealing with an emotionally disturbed person and violated protocol with the tackle and punch. He was not brought up on any charges at the time. And the campaign to smear Tasca on the Bogota force continued, her own boss, Captain Jim Sepp, admitting he lied in his report to fire her by failing to interview witnesses, twisting quotes, and destroying notes from his own report.
Lying means that you did something wrong, and I know I didn't do anything wrong. I protected that kid. I did exactly as I'm trained to do.
I'm going to be the first to say this. I've noticed that this is kind of happening a lot. One of my friends, he lived in Memphis, Tennessee. He was a security officer. His story was simply this, is that there was a homeless man on the property that he had to get, was asking to leave. The guy was being, disruptive and refusing to leave. So he called the police. The police officer showed up, pulls out his nightstick, and starts saying, "Oh, you're mine now," kind of a thing, and starts beating on this homeless man. What my friend had to do was pull his gun out and hold the officer down. The thing is, the only reason he didn't get into too much trouble, although he was put in cuffs and everything, all the police were there, because he had a gun on a police officer. And he told them, get your sergeant here. You're going to reach for this thing and call your sergeant. You're calling your supervisor. I don't want you calling your backup, you're calling your sergeant. The guy brings the sergeant over. They have this video of this guy just walks up to the homeless guy, pulls out his nightstick and or the PR-24, the nightstick, and starts beating on the guy. And the guy eventually did sue the officer in the city and won. My friend, doing the honorable thing, keeps refusing this guy's offer for money because of what he did. He did what was necessary. In this case, she's done what was necessary, and one of the things that popped up was that they said she was gay. And it's like, okay,
right?
It was like, wait a minute, now everybody's coming out and saying, we lied, we did this, we covered up, we wanted to get her fired. It's like, so you guys were looking for a reason to fire her, and this was your way of doing it, was because, and the only reason might be, and I'm not sure if that's the only reason, but what they said was she was gay. And it's like, okay, so your captain lied, your partner lied, everybody's lying, and you have all this proof, and they did everything. It's like, why wasn't the other guy brought up on charges? And I'm not talking about the victim, I'm talking about the other officer. Why was he brought up on anything? And I believe it's called obstruction of justice, if I'm correct. Ron, you would know this a little bit more, being a news anchor. Mm-hmm. I believe it's obstruction of justice because you are covering up what's really happening.
Right.
So for me, I really, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people, whenever a cop tries to pull them over or the cop wants to talk to them, they get all freaked out and scared because they're afraid that something's going to happen to them. And even in this case, they betrayed their own partner for doing the right thing because this guy wouldn't have stopped. We don't know. I mean, he's already punching him. He tackled him. He's punching him in the head. And she had to intervene to stop him. And yet, at the same time, she was condemned for it.
You know what I think about this? This woman should have been commended,
yes,
promoted, and honored.
Exactly.
The fact that she was gay is irrelevant. Throw it out the window. That's right. I'm a Christian saying the fact that she was gay is irrelevant. The fact that she is gay is irrelevant. She's a human being in an officer position who saw an officer acting corruptly.
The only question I have is...
And she stood up. And she protected... I keep thinking about... You guys seen that movie, A Few Good Men?
Yeah.
Now, what happened at the end with those... The two that were on trial? What was the problem? Why is it... I mean, they got dishonorably discharged, and the other guy, he was so upset they got dishonorably discharged. And what did that guy say to him?
It was because...
We were here to protect those who could not protect themselves.
Well,
that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to question. That's the problem with police officers. That's the problem with military, is they don't question what they're told. They just go and do and follow orders without even giving a thought to whether it's right or moral.
You know, because you've been bringing this up about her being gay, and I brought it up myself. My only question is, why was that even put in the report?
Exactly. I'm with you.
Well, it was put in there.
It's irrelevant.
It was
irrelevant.
It was put in there to show, like, you know, to kind of like say that the
There
department
got a
was
vendetta
discriminating
against her.
Yeah, that they didn't like her because she.
And
was
that could
gay.
be true.
That could be true. That could be true. Or it could just be the fact that they didn't want her on the force, and they just needed a reason.
I bring up the story because I think it's a perfect example of how we're not doing enough to get bad officers out. This is what happens to good officers who cross the thin blue line. You know, they get fired.
Do you know what I think they should do? Here's my theory, and I think it would solve a lot. I think good officers should be commended publicly. I mean, acknowledgement, and financially commended for turning in corrupt and bad officers. That's what I think should happen.
We already do commend good officers, and then there's people, I forget the exact details of the story, but there was an officer who was named Officer of the Year, and, you know, awarded and commended, and then, like, she later on went on to they were beating an African American man on the ground. They clearly were in the wrong, and you could hear Officer of the Year go, "Hold on, guys, you know, I'll turn off the camera. Don't worry, I got this." Like, you know, it's all business as usual.
Well, then,
just
see, you're not a good officer if you stand by and watch that and let that happen. You're just as bad as the officer committing it. You're a bad officer too.
How do you know you're giving the awards to the right people? You know.
Well, that's the other thing is.
Yeah, it's going to bring out the right people.
The problem is
money always says.
Well, the problem is we have too many that are who are wanting to go with the. I'm not even going to say go with the flow, but go with the peer pressure because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to have a problem. I mean, I've heard of, you know, these cops. I mean, there are good cops out there. I know a couple of them.
Yeah, there are.
But the thing is, they're overshadowed by all of these cops making mistakes. And a lot of the time, there's certain people who are like, yeah, you know, one guy...
Well, I think the good cops are made to feel like they're not part of the team if they don't go along with the bad.
Exactly.
Because I think the bad cops outnumber the good cops.
You know,
I really do.
I have a friend who was a cop, and he accidentally, you know, fired, you know, he had an AD or an accidental discharge, you know, where he almost fired on a guy, you know, close to a guy's head that was already on the ground. It was a complete accident. But, you know, and he stated that. He messed up big time. He got in trouble for it. But if somebody else did that, you know, they would try to cover it up and say, and if it did hit the guy in the head and kill him, they'll make up something to try to make it look like it wasn't that bad. It was, you know, self-defense of some sort. You know, the guy tried to reach for his gun or something. There's a lot of things they can say. The thing is, I'm tired of hearing about all these bad cops, because it basically makes everybody with the programming go, I'm afraid to deal with the cops now. You know.
Speaking about bad cops, let's talk about the next story because it's going to be on topic still. We're going to be talking about an officer who uses a questionable knee chokehold on a handcuffed man.
Do we have a video or images of this?
We're going to have a video.
Perfect.
Wow.
I want to see exactly what they mean by questionable.
Yeah. Let's watch.
Done now? We're gonna get you up. You get this again, this is gonna happen again. You understand that? Think about this.
You fucking fuck.
What?
No, he's on my neck. I'm trying to breathe. I'm just trying to live.
Stay down there? Or you wanna get up?
No, I want to get up.
You want to get up and act like a man?
You want to put your foot back on my neck. I'm trying to
Start
breathe.
acting like a man. Okay. You're gonna stand up on your feet and not kick us anymore. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Get up.
Holy. Yeah, we're.
Well, that's the gist
Really?
of that video. You know, if you can hear the officer, basically
That's
telling
warranted.
the guy, well, could you hear him? He's like, oh, you're gonna be a man, and
Well,
man,
no, I understand that, but
you know,
homeboy they were trying to bring him up to his feet, and he's wiggling around and fighting them, and so he had to put his knee back down.
Well, but
because they got to keep control.
But is holding someone by the neck with the knee a
Okay,
good idea?
okay,
That's
guys,
easily
guys,
asphyxiated.
guys.
You should put the procedures to put your knee on the back, not on the back of the head.
See, I don't know procedure. Well, you know more about that, being your specialty.
Yeah, I'm going to say this.
Something needed to be done for him.
Yeah, he could have easily sustained back and spine injuries.
Well, the other thing is, guys, you're missing the point of what he's saying. Because, Ron, you were saying he's wiggling. He's saying, I'm trying to breathe.
Yeah.
He cannot breathe.
Yeah, because he's like,
the wiggling, run it back. The wiggling he was doing was not trying to breathe. They were off of him. They had released their knee off of him and were trying to bring him up. And he's doing all this fighting them. So they had to put their knee back down.
Okay, first of all,
if you're fighting to breathe, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and the thing is, what you're going to do when you first gasp for air, your body's going to shake a little bit. You're going to wiggle.
Yeah, when you can't breathe, you're going to convulse and try to get away to breathe.
It didn't look like a convulsion to me. It looked like somebody who was fighting it.
And the other thing is,
who was just trying to fight the police.
And the other thing is,
watch it again. Watch this.
Because I don't see him moving much.
All right, now look.
I'm looking at him.
Now look. He's held down. Listen. I'm going to get you up.
Does he look like he's struggling?
He's adjusting to move.
Right there.
He's trying to move.
As soon as he picked his knee up, he started doing this.
He's trying to balance himself to help him stand up. That's what it looks like to me from here. And the other thing is, first of all, I've done martial arts I'm not a black belt, and I've said this before. You can break a neck very easily, and just by that amount of pressure, if he had let his, if you slip up or twist a certain way, you can actually break the guy's neck with your knee in that position.
Or he could break his own neck by fighting.
I'm sorry, as a cop, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, with the amount of people there, they should have been able to. Now, my thoughts on this story is that, from my understanding earlier in the video, they had to bring him down to this position because he was kicking and escaping. We did and they had to throw him down. That was okay. But let's say you hold him in this position. There's tons of squad cars here.
So you think once he got down, he was like, okay, never mind all that stuff before.
Hold on. I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, so you can hold them down in a violent manner like that until such time that someone goes to the squad car and they get the leg cuffs and then they get him around and they secure him. You can't go up to people and say, I'm going to brutalize you until you comply.
Well, no, they were trying to get him to his feet.
Well, the thing you're talking
they were
about,
trying to get their knee. He was trying to get his knee off of him and get him to his feet. But to know that he wasn't going to kick him anymore and fight anymore, and he was just going to be compliant. I've been arrested. When I was arrested, I did everything the officer said, compliant. Why? They're the ones with the guns.
Well, here's the thing. When you talked about
that's
when Josh was
honest
talking about
truth
and the movement, to me, from what I'm looking, like I said, from what I'm seeing on the screen is, that's exactly how I would move to try to put myself in balance, so I'm not being pulled directly back up.
That and you're his arms aren't just handcuffed; they're pushing them even further beyond. You can see his handcuffs are loose. That's got to be uncomfortable. And how could you not wiggle when you're being put in that kind of a lock?
And the other thing is, with the knee on the back of the neck, he could have easily put it on the spine. All he had to do was adjust his knee a little bit. The problem is he chose the neck, and then. He said, the guy's trying to shift a little bit to try to gain a little bit of balance and a little comfortability, and he drops it, and he puts the knee right back on the neck. And if he put a little more pressure on it, he could have snapped the neck. Now, the thing is, why did he, with 3 officers there, in that small space of that planter, and he had the ability, I could see that there is room for him to put his knee on the back of the guy's spine, which would have been a lot easier, and he would still comply.
Yeah, the shoulder.
Or the shoulder. And at the same time, it's like in that position.
Are you saying that they were hoping that he'd move around so much he'd snap his own neck?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is.
It's possible, I guess.
It is,
I'm saying that he was that is just wrong.
Too extreme, because
there were less extreme measures available.
Well, this is out of my expertise because I'm not into security and law enforcement, and I just know it's to be a law enforcement officer.
Yeah,
would be scary because you don't know what you're coming up against. No.
I'll tell you a story about what I did last night.
You've come up against something you don't know.
Last night.
Well, right. let me explain this much. Somebody I know got, this is the whole storyline, was that there was a drive-by shooting that went on, and they said it was a black SUV type vehicle. and he was driving his Hummer. So the police pulled him over. They, put him in cuffs. They were stepping on the back of his neck. Eventually, after it was all said and done, they realized they made a mistake. He actually had like a little bit of a neck injury because they were stepping on his neck. So they wound up trying to sue him. I don't know if he succeeded or not, but the whole thing was they had the whole 9 yards, cops all over the place, chopper, the whole 9 yards for a misunderstanding because he was not they thought they were looking for like a gang of people who did drive-by shooting. It's an old man who's getting out of a Hummer, So I mean, the whole thing is, I call it questionable because in the training, you were taught how to use certain things and certain methods to keep control over your person. So.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say.
I don't know. Hey, police officers out there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well,
feed back to us.
Yeah,
I mean, this isn't my field of expertise. Yeah. It's yours.
Yeah, like I just, this is not an egregious crime. But it could have been handled better, and I was not happy with how I saw that done.
Gotcha.
What would have happened if the guy did somehow get his neck broken? Well, then this could have been a bad situation. He could have been killed. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, that's all I'm gonna say is that there's a lot they could do, and there's a lot more training that. And I'm going to say this to the police officers out there. I know that you got, and one of the reasons I know a lot of this stuff is happening, I say a lot, but not all, is because of the fact that you guys don't have enough training. You have training, yes, but you're not spending enough time learning like self-defense methods, proper control, stuff like that, Yeah,
we're running a little low on time, so I want to move on to the next story. Let's see. A new bill in New York would pay residents to snitch on idling cars.
What?
Council city members will introduce a bill that would give citizens up to 50% of the summons revenue if they catch someone breaking the idling law, if they take video and submit it to the Department of Environmental Protection. Citizens seeking to cash in on their videos would first have to undergo training by the DEP, which is a one-day training course offered 5 days a year. Now, I have some interesting points to make on this, but I want to see what you guys have to say first.
Really?
Okay, no, what is your definition? I have to.
Okay, well, let me say the law is in New York that you can idle up to 5 minutes.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's up to 5 minutes, and we're looking at an average of a $450 infraction.
What?
Yeah.
For 5 minutes?
I'm an old guy. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm almost 50, right? This reminds me of a Cheech and Chong skit. I'm telling you.
I need to watch
we are offering a reward for the pusher. You turn in your mother, your dad, your brother, or sister, whatever. We're going to give you a cash reward.
Yeah, I had a few questions about this. One, let's say, let me fire off 2 questions. One, what happens if, someone's recording someone and someone comes out and kicks their ass? Does the city have to pay that bill? And 2, what if a corporation like Walmart puts cameras in its parking lot? Can they just turn in 20 people, 30 people a day and cash on this? What do you guys think?
I'm still sitting here going, 5 minutes of idling. I mean, for me, I'm sorry. I have an older car, before 2000. Sometimes when it's really cold, some people say I'm idling the car because I'm having it in park. But what I'm really doing
is warming it up.
I'm warming it up, exactly.
Right.
So, in that position, it's like, okay, let's just say hypothetically, I see somebody I don't like, and I'm like, oh, he's sitting in his car, but he's not moving. It's been 5 minutes. Oh, okay, I'm going to turn him in. And all he was doing was warming up his car. And then in return, what does that guy do? I'm warming up my car, he's going to sue me. And, the whole thing keeps going in a cycle.
Well, what I have to say about this is that, they say that this is about the environment and protecting people from spending or from ruining the environment. But when you have a system like this, I call it a referral system, which in business, if you refer someone to your business, you get a cut too, which leads me to believe that this is about the money.
Well, look, man, it's always about the money. But look, as years go by, as a few years go by, pretty soon there's not going to be any gasoline cars. Most of them are going to be electric anyway, because that's what they're going to. They're trying to.
I hope so.
They're trying. I mean, that would be the smart thing to do, is to go to an energy efficient vehicle that doesn't throw emissions out there, because God knows the corporations are doing that enough, and nothing happens to them. But we got to snitch on our brother and sister or neighbor or whatever when their car's idling. Yeah. But can we snitch on the corporations, get paid a shitload?
They'd probably
I'll snitch on corporations.
They'd probably put you in jail for snitching on corporations. That's the problem.
Why? They're putting out the most pollution, more than a car idling for 5 minutes. I'm just saying.
Well,
it's stupid to me.
Well,
it's stupid. It's just stupid.
They have one thing that you don't, and that's
money.
Well, money, and they use that for representatives. What are those people called that go to the the court, not the court. They go to Congress and they
lobbyists.
Yeah, they have lobbyists. That's what
blood
they have.
sucking. Trying to get their thing passed.
I'm going to say this is that, to me, like I said, I mean, first of all, you're talking about electric cars. Unless, we earlier talked about the minimum wage. First of all, a lot of us can't afford to make payments on a brand new car.
True.
And so, I mean, I've said this when I had to deal with the DMV, is that when my, and this has to follow the story, so it goes with the story about the environment. My catalytic converter kept going out because for whatever reason. They kept saying, first I used to get 3 months, and then I would get month to month, when I was dealing with the DMV. But too many people took advantage, and then they stopped doing that, and you had to go daily and get new passes. But if you were caught by the police, with that tag, and you were going to work instead of going to a shop, you can be fined. Well, it's like they're making it to where it's impossible for, like we said, the people who are in poverty, people with no money, to afford that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because people with newer cars always pass emission. It's the poorest of us that are having difficulty passing emissions.
The attack is always on the poor, the working poor.
It's the poorest people with the crappiest car that need
the working poor.
They need to reach into their pocket. And
it's not even the poor like me who don't have a car.
And the worst part is
it's those who are trying to get to work.
And the worst part about that is, what is going to happen? You can't pass it. They're going to take your car, or you can change it in. But then you're working a job that you can barely afford to pay your rent and everything else.
Right.
So you have to now pay an extra 2, 3, depending on how much money you put as down payment, depending on your credit. So if you don't have a good down payment, because you're living literally paycheck to paycheck, and like yourself, Josh, and both you and Ron, you have an apartment, you got your own bills to pay, and then all of a sudden you got to tack on like another. If you own your car right now, and then you got to tack on another $200-300, possibly $100 to $300 a month extra that you can barely afford living paycheck to paycheck. They're talking about you'll get this end of the year rebates for having an electric car and all these tax deductions.
You can afford it.
Yeah, but if you can afford it, but the problem is, in reality, you can't afford it. And that's why I was happy when I lived in other states, because my check engine light would come on when I lived in Memphis. They stuck the thing in and said, okay, well, your emissions check, because that was always the thing. Was that the emissions would pass, but the check engine light was on, and that was the whole thing. Was it didn't count because the check engine light was on. And like I said, for me, it is ridiculous to keep hearing that they're trying to make it harder for people, because I understand after 5 minutes the electric car will kick in, but what happens if they have electric cars? Is this going to be in that position of stuff like that?
Yeah,
so,
I think we're all in agreement that this is a terrible idea, and I'm frankly, I think it's going to turn communities against each other. And if I was walking down the street and I saw a group of people kicking someone's ass, I'm like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "He was recording people's cars."
Right.
I'd kick that guy's ass too. I'd be like, "Make some room for me. I want to get a boot in."
Exactly. You know what I want to talk about next time, if we can?
What?
I want to talk about why gas prices are going up so high in California right now, when the price of oil is going down, and this is the only state the gas prices are going up. That's what I want to talk about.
We're going to end it here.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
That's what I want to talk about.
And that's our show. We had a good time.
Yeah.
We have one last thing we'd like to talk about. Our friend Randy here has a friend who's a director, and he's going to be
director, screenwriter, producer, and I mean he's got a lot of things under his hat.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk about the movie, Randy.
Okay, this is again. You have it on there, so that's great. And
there you go. Fancy.
I want to give a shout out to some of the actors in it: Jacob Fife, Blaze Broadway, Vivian Naja, John Ballas, and Rob Bard, who's in it. And there's some other people who I haven't had a chance to say to. It's a great movie. It's a very, very spiritual movie. I think actually this is a movie that even Ron would like, because it talks more about becoming a better person. So it's a great film.
Like it already?
Yeah, it's a great film. Like I said, the storyline is about a guy named Reed. He was part of an organization that no longer exists. And in this movie, it's about his journey to find Fudoshin, which is called the immovable heart. basically, you know, it's about finding yourself, finding the hero within, and becoming the hero that you need to be.
No spoilers.
Well, no, there will be no spoilers. I want you to all watch it. You can pick this a copy up at Walmart for $9.99. You can order it online from Amazon, Best Buy, and Target. They're all online, and eventually will be on Redbox on April 7th. And I believe that Josh, you know, we're talking about the new movie that Rob has done, and I've gotten permission to show some of these photos.
We'll have those ready for next episode.
Oh, those will be on the next episode?
Yeah, I need to get time to make the slides. We went straight to bronze.
Oh, okay. So the whole thing is, you know, next week we'll show it. We'll show you some great pictures. You know, I will say this. There's a spoiler for next week. You will see the bat pod. Yes, Rob is actually riding in the bat pod in the next episode. You'll get to see the pictures. If I can find the actual footage of it, I'll try to show that too. So, like I said, check out the film. Danny Glover stars in it. You know, it's a great film. And really listen. And if you really watch it and really listen, you can find a lot of spiritual messages in it. So, and it's also very action-packed. You know, there's a lot of action in it. He's using authentic ninjutsu under the Bujinkan organization under Masaaki Hatsumi, and again, he trains under the master in Middletown known as Richard Van Donk. So please, you know, like I said, check it out.
Yeah, folks, when you have the chance, pick it up at Walmart and so forth.
Amazon.com.
Amazon, $9.99. Grab a couple of bags of some popcorn. Kick back with your special someone. Watch a great movie that's with a great message and a lot of action.
And the other
you have a great time.
The other great thing is this is not like a hardcore ninja assassin movie. So this is a movie you can actually watch with, you know.
Even the women would love, right?
Even the women would love. Plus the fact that little kids, it's not like completely disastrous like, you know, the ninja film with Scott Adkins or Ninja Assassin. There's not a lot of blood and gore. There is a lot of action, and this is something that is something you guys can watch with your kids.
Could the whole family enjoy it?
Yes, the whole family.
Cool.
Thank you.
That makes it even better.
You know, this is a good movie for everybody to enjoy, and everybody can get something out of it.
Thank you very much, guys. That is our show. Don't forget, if you liked the show, please like, comment, and subscribe. Every single one counts. I'm Josh the Atheist.
I'm Randy the Pagan.
I'm Ron the Christian.
That's our show. See you next episode every Friday.
God bless.
Ex-Director Reynolds, what do you stand for?
I gave up standing for things a long time ago.
Pay attention, or people will die.
John knew a way of strengthening a person's energy systems. It was a secret method of training.
Your next appointment is here, Director Reynolds.
Come in.
If you do anything to hurt the people that I love, I will kill you.
Where's my daughter? I took her. I know how to hurt you. Global Tech set us up to take the fall.